for the Mongols. Light, fast, and very mobile. The Mongols' objective was the great flat, fertile plain of Hungary. There they could graze their horses before moving further into Europe. But their intelligence told them that the King of Hungary was related to various Polish princes. The Mongols had to ensure no Polish armies came to his aid. So, in a daring gamble, they divided their army. The invasion of Europe would be conducted on two simultaneous fronts, 600 miles apart. The larger army would march through the Carpathian Mountains, the gateway to Hungary and southern Europe. The smaller contingent would ride into Poland to draw off any armies that might go to the aid of the Hungarians. The invasion of Poland in February 1241 took the various Polish city-states completely by surprise. The Mongols drove towards Krakow, the most powerful of all the city-states. When a Mongol advance patrol was sighted from the steeple of St. Mary's Church, a trumpet alarm was sounded. The garrison set out to meet the invader. It was ambushed and destroyed. Most of Krakow's inhabitants fled in panic. Ever since that day, in March 1241, a trumpeter has sounded the alarm, and at precisely the same note, he abruptly stops his call. It was at that point, according to legend, that a Mongol arrow struck, silencing the trumpeter. At nearby monasteries, most of the monks were slaughtered, their relics and treasures plundered, the buildings destroyed. On this campaign, the Mongols seldom took prisoners. What could they do with them? What was the point? The city of Krakow was also leveled, along with Lublin and Breslau. By now the alarm had been raised in all the cities along the Baltic. The call went out across Europe for armies to meet the invader. "500 miles to the south, the main Mongol army was making its way through the frozen passes of the Carpathian Mountains. The lightly defended Hungarian garrisons were surprised and quickly overwhelmed. Soon the Mongols were pouring through the valleys and down onto the Hungarian plains. They swept through Transylvania, Moldavia, and Wallachia before any defense could be mounted. For the Hungarians, it marked the beginning of one of the most terrifying chapters in their history, which was enshrined forever in the great Hungarian Chronicle. In the capital, all hopes rested with King Bela. He commanded the greatest cavalry in Europe, but getting it onto the field was proving a problem. The Hungarian nobility refused to accept Bela's command, and as they argued amongst themselves, the Mongols moved inexorably westward. From their fortified positions overlooking the Danube, the Hungarian defenders looked out across the water at an alien host on the opposite bank. The Mongol commander drew up his army right under the nose of his opponent. Once again, the strategy was to draw the enemy out into the open, onto ground the Mongols had already selected. They prepared their battle lines and eagerly awaited reports from the army in Poland. Before they made any move against the Hungarians, the Mongol commanders needed to be certain the Poles would not be coming to the aid of the Hungarian king. In fact, relays of messengers were galloping south, bringing news that a large northern European army was gathering to confront the Mongols in Poland. The messengers claimed There were Teutonic Knights, Knights Hospitaller, and even Templars from France. The result of the forthcoming encounter would decide the fate of the entire expedition and of the rest of Europe. The Europeans had gathered at this place, Liegnitz, near the German frontier. As the two armies faced up to each other, it was apparent the Mongols were outnumbered 3-2. To the defenders of Christendom, the Lord would grant a great victory, or the forces of darkness would prevail. So, on the morning of April the 9th, 1241, the knights put their faith in prayer and sharp steel. Tried and tested tactics, the Mongols drew the European cavalry out into the open. Before the infantry could advance behind the cavalry, a smoke screen began drifting onto the battlefield, effectively cutting off the two units from each other. Suddenly, the infantry found itself surrounded by ranks of Mongol archers who cut it to pieces. Out of the swirling smoke, a contingent of Mongol heavy cavalry charged down upon the remaining ranks of the knights. It was all over very quickly, and when the smoke had lifted from the scene, the Europeans were everywhere, dead and dying. The Poles later claimed the Mongols had outnumbered their own men by 3-1, and that they had the help of dragons who belched poison gas. But it was not so. An Oriental army had taken on the very flower of European chivalry and cut it to ribbons. 30,000 lay dead. The Mongol commander ordered an ear to be cut from every European killed. 9 sacks were filled. Two days later, and 600 miles to the south, on the field of Mohi, 20 miles from the Hungarian capital, Bela's cavalry were also destroyed. 40,000 more lay dead. So, an army that had marched 6,000 miles was in complete command of Eastern Europe. Soon after, Mongol patrols reached the very walls of Vienna. Indeed, no army of any consequence stood between the Mongols and the Atlantic Ocean. In Rome, the Pope preached a crusade against the invader, but few had the stomach for almost certain death. Even if the Europeans had been able to put up a united front, it's unlikely a leader could have been found to match the strategic genius of Subadar. So people just waited. Then suddenly, one morning in May 1242, the the Mongol armies had disappeared. They were gone.